You got to know your audience. All right, so we're going to go now to some more tips on avoiding what I like to call debaters. So debaters tend to fall into this in their second or third year of debate, and that's where they get so excited about the arguments because they can think of so many arguments that they forget about their judge who has not heard all these arguments all year, is not familiar with these concepts, and really just needs someone to communicate to them just like you would at the dinner table. So here's some tips on avoiding what I call debater speak. Again, this is a factor that can tip a close round in your favor, and that is if you talk to them like a real human being and avoid being a debater robot. So here's our success again, and we're going to talk about these different things. We're going to first start out, I believe, with simple. All right, keep going. Okay, so how to avoid debater speak. Number one, pick your best point. And I'll tell you, this is a hard thing to do. It is really hard because you know you guys are really smart, and you can think of lots of arguments. You could probably think of 20 reasons why their case is a bad idea. But the problem is debate is so limited as far as time and amount of energy that you have to put into each of developing these arguments. You really need to pick your top three, maybe 3 or 4 best arguments, and try to craft your speech around those. Rather than throwing out everything you can think of, you've got to be able to pick your best point. Einstein says if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. All right? A lot of times debaters get really excited about these highly technical intricacies of their case. And then they try to explain it to their grandmother, and the grandmother's like, I don't understand, honey. What are you talking about? You know, what is this? So if you can't explain it simply, you don't deserve to be up there speaking. You've got to figure out how to explain this to someone who's not been researching the topic all year. All right, next. All right, in '92, when Clinton was running for president, his advisors told him, if you say 3 things, you don't say anything. And this holds true in debate as well. So here's an example. If a debater were writing Clinton's catchphrases, they might want to throw everything in there, like, you've got to have Clinton in '92 because the issues in this election are the budget deficit, consistent foreign policy, and the economy. All right, but when you say 3 things, you say nothing. So what did he come up with? He said, it's the economy, stupid. All right, now I would definitely caution against using the word stupid in a debate round, okay? You don't want to offend anybody, all right? But it really worked for him in that election, obviously. Now, this is judge, okay? And most of them, hopefully, are not this grumpy, but you never know, all right? Deep down, they might be thinking this if you start rattling off about something that they don't understand. Here is a civil court judge from New York City was writing in a periodical that is read by lawyers in New York City, and he says, you got to limit your issues. You have to, and this is why. He gives a reason for this. He says, winning requires the guts to argue only those points that are likely to succeed. So throw out that disadvantage that you have only one card on, or throw out that topicality press that's so clever, but it's not really that persuasive. All right, pick your, go back one second. Yep, pick your top 2 or 3, he says maximum of 4 arguments. If you throw in the kitchen sink or waste your time arguing, what does this say to the judge? Well, this civil court judge says that makes the judge believe that you don't think any of your arguments are strong. And that's exactly what goes through your judge's mind. If you're just like, oh and this, everything you can think of, the judge is going to assume they don't really feel strongly about any of these, and you're leaving the judge to have to decide which of these is more important. So it's up to you to pick those top 2 or 3 points and be confident enough to stick with that. Yeah?
Is this just talking about voting issues or just throughout the whole round?
This is talking about the whole round. Yeah, she's asking, does this mean just voting issues, or do you debate this way the whole round? We train debaters to debate with a theme the entire round long. So from the 1 in C, you should be there with an overarching philosophy that you can fall back on. Yeah.
So basically, like, if I want to run some advantages with my case, I probably should pick just 2 or 3 for the entire round, is what you're saying?
On affirmative?
Yeah.
Okay, he's saying, should you pick just 2 or 3 advantages on affirmative? I would say at least in the 1AC, you probably don't want to have a lot more than that. It just depends on the case. But if they all fall under something, say, you know, what's your case about this year? Like,
well, I don't have a case
yeah,
yet.
or what? Yeah. If they all fall under, say, a value or a theme that you can fall back on, like creating jobs in America first, you know, that can be your theme. And then if you have advantages that talk about that, oh, here's this example from Texas, here's this example from California of how our program worked. Those are all things that you can bring under that main point. So that in the judge's mind is still under your main point.
So basically,
2 or 3 overarching issues for the round. Yes, I would say, yeah.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
If the opponent brings up other things, but they're not really important, how do you address those?
Okay, she's asking if your opponent brings up other things in addition to your main points, and you don't feel the opponent's points are very important, how do you address that? You're saying how do you keep from spending too much time on that? Okay, well, obviously, if your opponent brings it up, you need to cover that, all right? You need to address it. But you would just do so as little as possible, and then you would say, immigration is really not the issue in this round. What's really the issue is fixing our factories here at home, and that's why I want to go bring it back to my point about U.S. jobs first. Yeah.
So is that how you would say you would also address if they had an argument that was really weak and you kind of briefly addressed it and didn't spend much time on it and they brought it up later saying they totally dropped there? Is that how you would continue to address it by saying that this is really the main issue of the argument?
Exactly. She's saying if they bring up something you don't feel is really the key point in the round, and you're afraid of them saying that you've dropped it, obviously you need to address it. But definitely bring it back and show the judge how it falls under your overarching point. And say, okay, they've talked a lot about upsetting Russia, but that's not really the issue here at all. We need to focus on American jobs first. What Russia, they don't matter. What matters is Americans first. And then you bring that back to your point. Yeah, good. Okay, I think we can move on. Okay, so you guys have heard of opportunity cost, right? Some of you may be taking economics, right? So opportunity cost is what you sacrifice when you choose one option over another option, okay? So I like to apply this to the debate round because you have a really limited amount of time here. So you have to think about this. Every minute that you spend on a topicality argument that's iffy as far as persuasiveness, it equals 1 minute that you did not spend on your best point. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to manage your time. Think, could this minute of time be used better if I address my main point instead? All right, number 2, how to avoid debater speak is keep it simple. Keep it simple. And this is where I'm going to go back to my man JFK, because I feel like he was so brilliant, and his speechwriters were so brilliant at saying something in as few words as possible, but still giving you the picture in your mind of what he was trying to convey. So we're going to use this as an example. Let's say that you're running a case and maybe it's Parley, maybe it's back in the 50s or something, and you're running a case to try to put a man on the moon, all right? So let's go to the debaters. Here's what you might say if you're speaking debater speak. You'd say, our plan is to become the international leader in the space industry. We will establish a task force, we'll find innovative initiatives, we'll bring more business for American companies, and and improve America's position in the global community by putting a man on the moon. You just said a lot of things, but you didn't say anything because you said too many things. So what did JFK do when he was trying to sell this idea to the public? Did I not zoom to him? He says, we will put a man on the moon and return him safely by the end of the decade. He just told you the plan, he told you the timeline of the plan, and he told you what he was doing all in one sentence, and it's going to really stick in your mind. All right? So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is take that argument, get it down to its bare bones, and make it concrete enough that the judge is going to remember it. Okay, perhaps some of you, like me, spend too much time on Pinterest. Okay, I'm sorry for all the things on here. But anyway, yes, guilty. All right, so here's one of those things I saw floating around, and I thought, how about this for debate? What do you guys think? It says, I'm only responsible for what I say, not for what you understand. Is that true in debate? Right. You guys have probably heard before, the judge is always right. And unfortunately in debate, that's the way it is. If the judge votes against you, whose fault is that? The judge or you? Right. It's your fault. Why? Because debate's a communicating sport. So if you have not communicated what's up here to that person that's holding that pen and the ballot in their hand, that's your fault. All right? So that's why you have to utilize all the tools at your disposal. So you use those figures of speech and pick your best arguments so that the judge really connects with what you're trying to say. All right, here's another funny example, just of how you can phrase your argument. You can phrase it in a way that's academic and theoretical, or you can phrase it in a way that's really relatable and real-life focused. So, I don't know, anybody was around or watching Environment Year? Maybe no, that was too long ago. Okay, ish, yeah, okay. Environment Year, there was a case about endangered species, and basically the idea is that if the government finds an endangered species on your property, the government can seize that property in order to protect that species, okay? So there's 2 ways to explain this argument. First, you can do it in an abstract way. You would say, Judge, private landholders naturally protect endangered species more effectively than government-enforced regulations. And the judge is probably still sitting there thinking, what are you talking about? All right, go to the next one. Or you can explain it with an example that's going to be really concrete. You could say, okay, judge, let me explain to you why this policy doesn't work. Say you're a farmer and you know that your land could be seized if the government finds an endangered slug on your property. Say you're that farmer. When you find that endangered slug and you care about your farm, maybe it's been in your family for years, and you see that slug on your property, what are you going to do? If you know that government inspector could be here any day to seize your land, you're probably going to put him out of his misery. You know, the little slug, he's not on your land anymore. You're probably going to squish it, all right? And this has actually happened. And so you would explain to your judge, this is why this policy is counterproductive to its goal of protecting endangered species, because farmers don't want to lose their property. They're not going to be protecting those slugs or those endangered whatever, but they're going to try to get them off their property so that they can keep their land. All right? So try to phrase that argument in as real-life terms as possible. Try to give an example of a real person. Try to say, Judge, imagine if this policy affected you. How would you react? All right, and then here's another way to avoid debater speak, but one second, I'll get a drink. Okay. How many of you have had a debate round and you had to talk about, or maybe extemp, any speech, really, and you had to explain a really big number? Yeah, really big number. Okay, what number did you have to explain? Here. The quadrillions? Okay, what was it about?
It was about
the future of our debt could be in the quadrillions, he says over here on the front row. Yes, okay, anybody else? What big number did you have to explain?